membership retention is one of those things in Rotary where we think it's a mission impossible. But today I'd share my thoughts with you to say that it's probably possible. You know, the great thing about Rotary is that it creates love all around the world. And, you know, the pillar that builds our organization is love and fellowship. You know, I remember this conversation I had with my wife once, and she said to me, Siva, do you love me? And I said, yes. And she said, would you die for me? And I said, no. And she said, what kind of love is that? And I told her that's an undying love. And I hope that's the kind of love that we all have for Rotary, that it's an undying love. You know, my friends, I think every Rotarian in the world knows this, that there are 1.2 million Rotarians. You know, if you ask a Rotarian, could you please recite the four-way test? Many of them would probably have no difficulty saying, is it the truth? And then they'd say, will it build goodwill? And some of them will then forget. And some of them may not be able to tell you the third limb of the test, the fourth limb of the test. If you ask them what is the object of Rotary, many Rotarians may be able to tell you that it is to foster the ideal of service as the basis of worthy enterprise. And after that, blank. But you can ask any Rotarian. I've been in Rotary for 30 years. How many Rotarians are in the world? And they'll tell you 1.2 million without batting an eyelid. And I'll tell you exactly why that is the case. It's because it's been this number for nearly 20 years. We've been stuck at this 1.2 million for so long that everybody now knows this number. And so it's very worrying. And I ask myself, is it because we have failed to bring people into Rotary? So let me take you through a journey through time and space. In 2009, we had 1.2 million Rotarians in the world. This is the number, okay? 1,200,419. And then we traveled through time. 10 years passed by, and we recruited an additional 1.38 million Rotarians. So in 10 years, between 2009 to 2019, we recruited more than 1.3 million Rotarians. Started off with 1.2, we recruited 1.3 million. And so now we arrive in 2019, which was last year. And how many Rotarians do we have worldwide? Just under 1.2 million, 1.89 million or so Rotarians. So I asked this magical question, what happened? Because there seems to be a strange thing happening in Rotary. Like we are like these screens that don't have enough broadband. That, you know, after a while when you're watching the movie or when you're trying to download something, it just starts buffering and it goes in circle. And we are like that. We've become the organization that's been buffering for 20 years, despite all our efforts. And so I asked my question, which is there something wrong with our math? Because I'm membership chairman of my district, this Rotary year going forward. And every membership chair, and I've been membership chair twice before, and we always manage to bring people in, but somehow 1.2 million plus 1.3 million should give us 2.5 million, but instead we are still 1.2 million. I call this Rotary maths, right? For some reason, no matter how many people we bring in, we don't get the growth that we want. So what happened to these 1.4 million Rotarians who came into our organization and then for some reason they've been lost? They are lost to our organization. And I asked myself, right, what happened? Because we did all the heavy lifting, we lifted, we brought in the Rotarians, and then we dropped the barbell. We did the work, we brought in the Rotarians, we brought it up, and then we dropped the barbell, and we are still at 1.2 Rotarians. So my friends, it's a red alert for all of us. And we should all start thinking about this because it affects all of us, because this is our mission. This is our passion. This is what we believe in. And the question is, why is it that more people don't share this enthusiasm? So my friends, all right, I'll tell you a story. about this British paratrooper who landed across enemy lines during World War II, and he was interrogated by the general on the enemy side and slapped him around a bit and said, look, we want to know what is your secret mission. And this guy said, never, never, I will never tell you what my secret mission is. Even if you kill me, it doesn't matter. So they said, look, listen, we're not going to kill you, but we're going to chop off one of your legs if you don't tell us. And he said, never mind, chop it off. And so they chopped off one of his legs. And then, of course, there was his leg on the floor. And he looked at the general and he said, look, I know you guys have to do this because it's your duty to your country, but do the civilized thing. At least send my leg back to Britain where it can be buried on British soil. And so the general said, look, we are not barbarians. We'll send your leg back. And the next day, they interrogated him again. And this time, they chopped off his other leg. And again, he made the same plea. He said, please, can you send my leg back to Britain where it can be buried in British soil? And he said, all right, we are not barbarians. We'll send it back. And the following day, they interrogated him. Here's the guy sitting with no legs and just two hands. And he said, look, now if you don't tell us, we're going to chop off your hands. And he said, no, I won't tell you. God save the Queen, rule Britannia. And so they chopped off his left hand. And again, he made the plea, send my hand back to Britain so that it can be buried on British soil. And then on the last day of interrogation, he now only had one hand. And they said to him, listen, you only have one hand left. Tell us your mission or we're going to chop it off. And he said, no, rule Britannia. I'll never give up the Queen. And they chopped off his remaining hand. And as he was lying on the floor, he made the impassioned plea again. He said, please send my hand back to Britain so that it can be buried on British soil. And the general said, I know what you're after. I know what you're trying to do. I'm not going to send your hand back. And he said, why? He said, because we know you're trying to escape piece by piece. And that's exactly what's been happening in Rotary. We bring people in. First, they have one leg at the door. Then they have two legs at the door. And then they're gone. People that join our clubs for some reason are escaping. They are running away. They are leaving our organization through the windows, through the door. 1.4 million of them have run away from Rotary. So my friends, if this isn't enough for you to start thinking about what is it that we are doing wrong, and if you think that our failure to retain is a normal thing, that's life, then you obviously don't understand the gravity of the problem. And I think as leaders and as Rotarians, we have a duty to start asking the question, why? Why are these people coming and going? Is it because they lack motivation? Is it because they are looking for something that they don't find? Why? It's like a puzzle, it's like the Rubik's Cube. As a child, I used to play with it and I used to try and figure out what the problem was. It's like a puzzle that I cannot solve. And so I resorted to some childlike simplicity. Just look at the basic things. Just think about the basic questions. And I asked myself, I said to myself, perhaps I should change my point of view, because Rotarians, we like Rotary. We love Rotary. And so we are the problem. We can't solve the problem unless we become objective, step out and look in from the point of view of the 1.4 million people who have left. I've been a Rotarian for 30 years. I love Rotary. Rotary has given meaning to my life. I'm sure it's the same for you. But the question is, why is it that 1.4 million people have left our organization? So we have to step out of ourselves. We have to look from outside. We have to self-reflect in a way that is objective. And so that brings me to the Rotary strategic priorities, right? Our strategic priorities are to create impact, to reach out, to engage the people within our organization and the community at large, and then to be able to adapt to change. For me, these are very sensible strategic priorities. So let's look at reach. I don't think really we have a problem with reach, because we've reached more than 1.3 million people in the last 10 years. So our challenge is not one of reach, you know, but our members have magically disappeared. The 1.4 million people that we inducted with a lot of pomp and a lot of dignity, for some reason, they've left. Now, I can imagine that some of them would have grown old. I can imagine that some of them would have passed on. But certainly a huge proportion of that 1.4 million are still around. So the question is, where have they magically disappeared to? So I take the remaining limbs of our strategic priorities: impact, engagement, and adaptability. So let's talk about impact. What do we mean by impact? Well, for me, if we want to sell anything, including the idea of being a humanitarian servant, you have to show what it is that people are buying into. You have to convince people that what you're doing is worthwhile for them to come in. Because Rotarians, we are a unique lot. We are not just volunteers, we pay to volunteer. That makes us remarkable individuals, because we are not just like some volunteer organization without any subscription where we just join and volunteer. We actually pay money every month. Our club dues, our district dues, our Rotary International dues, we pay to serve. That makes us a very special breed of people. So I ask myself the question, what is it actually that we are about? And so I start off with the myth. The myth is that, and this is what we sell sometimes, which I think is incorrect, that all Rotarians are beings of light, that we are service above self, that somehow we are floating in the air with wings like angels, and we are there to do good. And people, when they hear this, they like the idea, because who doesn't like Mother Teresa? Who doesn't like a Nelson Mandela? Who doesn't like a human being who has given up everything in order to serve the community? But the question is that who we are? Now, if you look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs, Maslow says people start off life looking at the basic needs. Don't talk about the higher things in life if you don't have food to eat, if you don't have water, if you don't have sleep. Once they've got those things, they look for higher things: safety, shelter, protection. And once they got that, they search for even higher things. They look for relationships, connections, love. And then they want to feel important. They need their self-esteem fed. And once they've got the recognition and their self-esteem is fed, then they ascend to a level where they're asking about the meaning of life. Why are we here? Now, sometimes, because we use our motto, service above self, it creates the impression that Rotarians are self-actualizers, that we are at the level where we don't need this recognition and things like that, and that we are at the level where we are seeking out the meaning of life and trying to do things to give purpose to our life. That's partially true, but not entirely true, because we still need, a lot of us are still in that range where we are looking for those recognition, we are looking for those district awards. And so we have to be real about who we are. We cannot present an image to the world of something that we are not and then expect people to be with us regardless of the hypocrisy. So my friends, what do we say about Rotary? When we talk to people about Rotary, we say that our organization is an organization of service. We say that our organization is an organization where we have a duty to help the world. It's an organization of real friendship and fellowship. And we are talking about the future, making the future a better place. That's why we have Interact and we have Rotrack and we are investing in young people. This is the sales pitch. This is what we are telling people when we seek to bring them into Rotary. So I ask myself the question, what do people see? What do people see when they come into our organization? And again, you have to be absolutely honest about this if you want to make progress. If you are in denial, you can never change things. So what do people see? They see grandeur. They see lavish functions, dinners, lunch. They asked George Bernard Shaw years ago. they asked him, where do you think Rotary is going? And he said, to lunch, because that's what people see. We have our luncheons, we have our dinners, and what else do they see? Well, I ask you this question. What is the single most important Rotary project? Some people may say the eradication of polio. Yes, yes. How much did your club give this year to the eradication of polio, to the polio effort? $1,000 US, 2,000 US. But you know, I bet you spent more on your club installations. I bet people spent more buying tables and coming for dinners, all right, and the club installation. I see many clubs spend a lot of time and resources on making their club installations as grand as possible. People see this too. Now, I'm not saying you shouldn't have it, but I'm saying that your commitment to service must be in equal measure. You cannot have a club installation and spend $50,000 on it and give 2,000 to the eradication of polio. There is a disconnect there. And that's what people see. So my friends, what people see is not the duty, the service, the future. Sometimes what they see is the privilege. The meeting after meetings that we have. We dull them with all these meetings. We challenge each other for positions to become governors and RI directors and whatnot. And we cling on to the past because we have so many past titles, past president, past assistant governor, past district governor, past Rotary International Director, right? For me, Rotary classification is active and the past is a passive thing, it's finished. So the sooner we move away from that and talk about things that are in the present and in the future, the more vibrant our organization will become. You know, look at some of the things that we've done in the past. I remember in year 2013-14, Ron Burton was the president, and he called his president first-class presidents. And of course, after that, Gary came in, and he called his presidents best-class presidents. And I'm asking the question, once you're the best, what's after that? And so Ravi answered the question when he said, be a world-class president. But it shouldn't just be for Rotary year 2015-16, Rotary year 2014-15. We should be first class, best class, world class every year in our commitment to service. So my friends, there is a disconnect. The extent of the disconnect varies from club to club, but you should ask yourself the question, are you an organization that is about duty, service, true fellowship, and the future? Or are you an organization that's focused on privilege, having a lot of meetings, fighting for positions, and aggrandizing the past? This is a question that only you can answer. And if you don't sell the experience correctly, people will come and they will leave. Because when they come, they believe that you're giving them a Mercedes-Benz, and then somewhere along the line, they find that you've given them a broken down automobile and they leave. And so that's one of the things. People leave when we don't deliver what we promise. This is what happens to them, right? This is what happens to Rotary. People will reject us outright. They'll say, go, we don't want that organization. And so this is something that all of us should be mindful about. It's time for us, you and I, to raise the bar in our clubs, in our district, and in the Rotary world. And to do that, we have to say goodbye to our dear friend, ego. Because many of the things that happen, many of the problems that we have arise from this creature, ego. And ego is a creature that is very difficult to destroy. It's very difficult to overcome. Because even when you consciously make an effort to be humble, if people around you say a few good things about you, Mr. Ego will reappear. And then sometimes we may need a very large pull or cart in order for us to cart our head around because it gets too big for us. So my friends, don't hold on to this ego. When I got married to my wife, I told her on the first night of our wedding, I said, darling, I'm a man, you're a woman, and in this relationship, we'll run it like the military. I am the general. you can be my major, but don't forget, I am the general. And my wife said to me in a very polite way, she said, Siva, if that's the way you want it, no problem. You be the general, I'll be the major. And ever since that day, my wife has been making all the major decisions, and I've only been making the general decisions. You know, ego doesn't get us very far. So the sooner you let go of it, the better off you will be. Okay? So now let's move on to the second priority, the second strategic priority. We have to engage Rotary. We have to engage our friends. We have to engage our community. But more than that, I think we should all focus on friction, because friction is good and bad. Friction that is disruptive, that changes the way we think. Like, you know, when the first Tesla came out, or when Google came out, okay? These are revolutionary technologies that disrupt. But friction that is disruptive, that means when you have conflicts, interpersonal conflicts in a club, that's very, very bad. And that is the kind of friction that we must avoid. You know, sometimes, you know, I see in some Rotary meetings, this is what they're doing, all right? Maybe not with weapons, but their weapons are words. And words can be as hurtful as a knife or a gun. So you should bear that in mind, you know? Conflict is disruptive. And so we have to change our mindset from one of conflict to one of reconciliation. You know, one of the great debates that I've encountered in my Rotary life is when a Rotarian leaves a club. He's not happy for some reason, or he quarrels with someone, and he wants to leave the club. So there's a conflict, the Rotarians leave. And then the Rotarian joins another Rotary club. And there is all manner of barrier that is set up by some individuals who say, no, this person is not of good standing. He cannot leave, whatever the reasons may be. No, let me tell you this. If a Rotarian leaves your club and joins another club, that's good for Rotary, because we still have the same number of Rotarians. We have not lost anybody, right? If a Rotarian has a problem in a club, he leaves and he charters a new club. That's even better, because now we have 20, 30 more new members in Rotary. So we shouldn't begrudge these things. Because when a Rotarian leaves the organization, you know, there's a conflict in the club, the Rotarian leaves Rotary, he leaves. The 1.4 million people have left Rotary. For me, that's bad for Rotary. It's like a rocket going up and it crashes. Because, you know, the Rotarian that leaves Rotary is doing one of two things. Either number one, he doesn't have anything to say about Rotary, which is good. Or number two, he says Rotary is a lousy organization. Don't waste your time. Don't waste your money joining that organization. They're a bunch of fools. If someone says that, then no amount of money that you spend on public image is going to restore the dignity and pride of being a Rotarian, because somebody there is saying something negative about our organization. That's adverse publicity. That's bad for all of us. And worse still is that if somebody has a conflict in a club, and the next thing you know, they sue the club. This, for me, is the catastrophic event. If Rotary is being seen to be sued by somebody because we've either terminated them wrongfully or whatever reason, that brings us in the public light in a very different way. And this is something we should avoid at all costs. So my friends, I say to you, we have to manage our conflicts better. Sometimes the best thing to do is to just say, it's okay, we agree to disagree. Let's walk away. Rather than make it more acrimonious, make it more hateful, right? We all have in us two wolves. All of us have these two wolves in us. These wolves live in us. The one wolf is a dark wolf. It's a wolf of hatred, anger. It's a wolf of envy, jealousy. This wolf lives in all of us. But there is another wolf that lives in all of us. This is the wolf of kindness, of sharing, of benevolence, of love. This wolf also lives in us. The wolf that is altruistic, the wolf that wants to help others. So the question is, and this is a tribute to my friends from the Philippines, okay, you can see the great champion Pacquiao there. The question is, in this fight between these two wolves within us, which wolf wins? Does the dark hatred wolf win, or does the good love wolf win? And the answer to the question is very simple. The wolf that wins is the wolf that you feed. If you feed hatred and anger and jealousy and envy, then that becomes you. But if you feed love, goodness, kindness, then that is who you will become. And I think that when we have these conflicts, we should lean in the direction of the good wolf, and we should feed forgiveness and love and end it in an amicable way. So my friends, once we are able to manage conflict, have a harmonious relationship in the club, once we are able to create a situation where people come into the club knowing fully well what they're in for, then the question is, can we adapt? Can we change? And I tell you, to be the change is a very difficult thing. We are all changing. Every day we change. But to be the change, right? Gandhi said, be the change you want to see in the world. You be the change. But it's easier said than done. But I'll give you a simple example. In my club, there are about 40 or so of us in my club. And for a long time, I've been telling them, listen, why don't we, have some meetings online? Why don't we allow some of the members who can't attend our regular meetings to join us by Zoom? We'll put them on a screen and they can attend the meeting. And it's always, the response has always been, oh no, that's too difficult. Oh, we don't need Zoom. It's better to meet in person. But what did this little virus do to us? The whole Rotary world is now meeting by Zoom and by other means of, teleconferencing. Gone are the days when we are thinking about physical meetings now. This little virus changed our pattern of behavior. Why? Because necessity is the mother of invention. And so if we realize that, then we will realize that there are many changes that we can introduce to our Rotary clubs. And Rotary International has taken the lead with the new club models, with the new flexibility that they are allowing clubs. And we must all embrace it rather than reject it and say, oh no, that's not what Rotary is. What Rotary is your memory of what it was 30 years ago or 20 years ago is not what Rotary is. Rotary is what it is now. And as the famous Chinese philosopher Lao Tzu said, resisting change is like holding your breath. Even if you're successful, it won't end well. You hold your breath and you're successful, you're dead. So my friends, we have to be innovative. Sometimes, we hear this argument in our clubs, They say things like this to us. They say, okay, listen, Siva, we will change slowly. We will do things slowly, all right? Because we mustn't do things too fast. Members can't take it. Well, if the world thought like that, if everybody in the world thought like that, we'd be living in darkness, because the electric light did not come from the continuous improvements of candles. The electric light that we have today, the LED light that we have today, is not an evolved candle. It's something else. Sometimes you have to think completely out of the box if you want to bring change. And so I'm going to share with you a very humorous video made by the Lions. Let's watch it together.
You enjoying your first pancake breakfast?
Oh, it's delicious. Thanks, Lion Carissa. Hey, guys, listen, I know I'm a new member, but I had an idea.
Okay. Do tell.
What if we also served waffles?
Waffles! Lions eat pancakes. Always have, always will.
Do you want to lose your pin?
No, pancakes are the champion of the breakfast table. They're the only food worthy of the king of the jungle.
Well, it might be nice to have a little variety, right? I mean, hey, look, we have syrup, we have butter in the back, and I actually carry a waffle iron in my hatchback.
You remind me of this guy who tried to bring French toast to the group. French toast Dennis.
Yeah. We don't talk about FTD anymore.
R.I.P. FTD. Oh, yeah, he didn't die. But he's dead to us.
Hashtag
Lions Pride.
Look, I know that being a lion is all about following tradition, but I'm just saying, what if we made our own traditions, you know, shook things up a little bit? Like what if we served crepes?
No.
Or a quiche? What if we had dinner for breakfast?
It's very clear. Pancakes in the morning, spaghetti at night, everything in Lions Club will be all right. It's there in the bylaws.
No, it isn't.
It should be.
Sorry for going against the group here,
Understood.
right?
Of
course.
Don't worry about it.
No big deal.
I brought a salad for myself. I hope that's okay.
Absolutely.
It's not Rabbit's Club. Eat your pancakes.
Do you want some syrup?
No, thank you.
Do you want syrup?
Yes, I would
There it
love some
is.
syrup. Thank
Oh,
you.
Fun.
Now, I find this video so funny because it reminds me of the way some of the members in Rotary speak, right? They speak like as if things that we do can never be changed, that it's written in stone, that it's a tradition that can never ever be forsaken because it's Rotary, you know? Let me share with you something that our founder, Paul Harris himself said. And so it can't be Rotary to suggest that. He said, it's well that there is nothing in Rotary so sacred that it cannot be set aside in favor of things better. And so let's be mindful of that as we go forward. So my friends, for me, if we lay out the strategic priorities, and if we are true to ourselves, and if we are honest and understand the type of organization that we are, and that's what we tell people, then you will find that Rotary will grow from strength to strength. Here we have our founding fathers, right? Paul Harris, Sylvester Shield, Hiram Shorey, Gus Lowe. These are our founding fathers. And I often ask people, what is it that we will have in common with them? And people tell me all manner of things. They say, oh, you know, we are respectable people like them and so forth. But, you know, I always tell them, the thing that we will have in common with them is like them, one day, you and I will also be a photograph on the wall. And so then the question becomes this. Today, you and I are talking about Paul Harris. We are talking about his legacy. We are, in a way, living out his legacy. The question is, what will our legacy be? What will your legacy be? What will be the thing that you do that will make you remembered? And so as David Copperfield, as Charles Dickens wrote in David Copperfield, are you going to be the hero of your own life? Or is that a role that you're going to give to somebody else? And if you choose to be a hero in your own life, then remember this, time is running out. 70% of our Rotarians are at that age where they're past 50, which means if we don't act now to bring younger people into our organization, if we don't act now to show equality, gender equality, diversity, and bring all types of people into our organization and make it an inclusive and loving organization, then 30, 40 years down the road, we are going to have a quantum event. We are not going to be 1.2 million because 70% of that 1.2 million is going to be wiped out in a 10-year period, 30 years from now. So my friends, it's our duty to preserve Rotary because we believe in it. We believe in its motto. We believe in the spirit of Rotary. We believe in the spirit of helping others. So therefore, before we grow old and before we fade out and before the end comes for us, we should pass the baton. And that is your duty, right? I always ask people this question. I show them this slide and I tell them, is this train coming into the station or is it leaving the station? And if you look at it long enough, sometimes it looks like the train is coming into the station. Sometimes it looks like the train is leaving the station. You know, look at it and you'll realize that. You can't tell whether it's coming or whether it's going. And my friends, life is like that. You can't tell when you're coming. You can't tell when you're going. And so therefore, act now. Because only the present is real. If you have a plan to do something 5 years from now, We don't know whether we'll be around 5 years from now. So go back to your clubs today, act now, bring about the changes, you know. And I always say that every mission starts with a plan. It's time for your clubs to embrace strategic planning. Have a 3-year plan, have a 5-year plan, and put out a timetable by which you will retain and build your membership. Don't be happy with the fact that you have 20 people in your club. Build, because more people in Rotary is more hands for service. And you have to make it personal. You cannot think of it as a job for your president. You cannot think of it as a job for your membership chair. You cannot think of it as a job for your district governor. You have to think of it as your job, because each of us pays the same amount to be a Rotarian. Each of us have the equal duty to love, to preserve, and to share Rotary. And therefore, it is important that you make it personal. It is important that you realize that the Hunger Games is not a movie. The Hunger Games is a real thing that happens in the world, because every 4 seconds in this world today, a child dies of hunger. Child doesn't die because he's had a car accident, doesn't die because he's got a disease. He doesn't die because there has been an earthquake or a volcanic eruption. The child dies for lack of food. Can you imagine what a travesty it is to human existence, that we are human beings, but we are not being human? That every 4 seconds, 4, 3, 2, 1, right then, a child has died because the child has no food. Rotarians are the only people in the world, together with all the other service-oriented human beings, who are trying to address this. There are many people who just don't care. There was this guy, Kevin Carter. He was a great photographer. He won the Pulitzer Prize for photography for this photo. He was given great honors for his incredible photographic skill, taking this picture. 2 years after he won the Pulitzer Prize, Kevin Carter killed himself. Kevin Carter killed himself because he couldn't live with the guilt of his inaction, right? Because as he was putting his camera on this child, and as he was trying to take this photograph, he put his camera and he left it there for 20 minutes. Why did he wait 20 minutes to take this shot? Because he was waiting for the vulture to lift up its wings so that it would be an even more dramatic shot if the vulture was standing over the child like that, okay? And Kevin Carter realized what a big folly he had done by taking that photo. Instead of going to the aid of the child, he put himself before that child. Couldn't live with the guilt, he killed himself. It is this apathy of the many that is killing the world. You and I, my friends, we are Rotarians. We don't suffer from this disease called apathy because we are actors. Our governments, they are doing this, right? Every government is saying it's his fault. No, it's his fault. It's his fault. They are blaming each other. Most people, what are they doing? They are praying. They are hoping for a solution. They're saying, God, please help me. You know, I hope I find a solution. It reminds me of this story of this fella, okay? He was watching this television and there was this TV evangelist, and the TV evangelist said, you know, hallelujah, I heal the sick. And he got up and he told his wife, he said, I'm going to see the preacher. And the wife said, why do you want to see the preacher? He said, you know, honey, you know, I'm impotent. You know, the thing downstairs doesn't work. So I'm going to see the preacher because he can heal the sick. And the wife said, honey, don't waste your time, because the preacher man, he said he can heal the sick. He didn't say he can raise the dead. So my friends, we have to heal Rotary before it becomes dead, because the only way to defeat darkness is to become the light. And that's what Rotary is. Rotary is the light that shines on the world. Please watch this video.
Dạ chậm đây mà.
His name is Gordon. He's my father. He was a soldier. While he was a prisoner of war, It was hell. He didn't believe there was goodness in the world anymore. And when the war ended, he changed. His faith returned. He dedicated his life to help other people.
And on the day he died, he asked me to come and find the person who changed him. What did you say to him?
Oh. Oh. Oh.
My friends, I love that video. I show it many times all over the world, many conferences. And what that video shows me is something very simple, that the thing that we Rotarians do is we touch people. It doesn't matter how big or how small the project is, but when you instill in a person's life hope, it makes that person's life magnificent. We are selling hope. We are the salesmen and saleswomen of hope, because the things that we do sometimes may appear little to many people, but what it does is it transforms that person. Because a person who is destitute, a person who is lost, a person who is suffering needs hope. And if you can touch that person and give that person hope, you have done everything the person needs to rise up and live a life that is full. So you must never ever forget that Rotary and Rotarians, we are like a light that shines on the world. We are a light that brings hope to those who are hungry, that brings hope to those who are sick, that brings hope to people who are suffering the effects of a disaster, that brings hope to the world for peace, understanding, and a better way of being. That is what makes us great. And when we lose sight of this and focus on all the other things, they become a distraction. They overwhelm us and cause people to leave our organization. Remind yourself constantly that you are this light that gives hope to the world. I love this year's Rotary theme. Rotary opens opportunities. When I first saw it, I received it with trepidation, because he said, what do you mean? Are we in Rotary to get opportunities? But then Holger clarified. He said, the service deeds that we do, big and small, they create opportunities for the people that we help. And those opportunities transform their lives. But I want to tell you that the lives that we transform, when you open one door, it's not just that life. I was in Makati many years ago, and Sid Garcia, my good friend, chaired a committee where they built homes for people who are homeless. And he said to me, it's just $10,000 to build a home. And I gave him $10,000 for one home. And he said, that's a magnificent thing that you've done. And I said, no, Sid, it's not. That's all I can afford. But I thought more and more about it, what Sid said to me. And it made me realize one thing, that home that you give to a homeless person now becomes a sanctuary for his family. And that sanctuary now means that his children will get a better education, means that his children will have a place to stay. They will then have better jobs going forward, and the next generation of his family will have a better life. And because they have a better life, then future generations of his family will have a better life. So every door that you open, every act of good that you do, every act of service that you do, every kindness that you show, every hope that you share, opens another door, and another door, and another door. And the doors are endless. And you will not realize it in your lifetime. But people will live better lives while you sleep. People will be fed while you sleep. Children will have hope for better education while you sleep. And Rotary turns its wheel, its magnificent wheel, and the magic of service goes on and on and on. So my friends, don't be complacent. The time is now. The time to get moving is now. The world is faced with a pandemic of unequal proportion. COVID-19 has attacked the world in a way that no Mission Impossible villain can attack the world. And Rotarians are rising up to the occasion in 35,000 communities all over the world, bringing help to those people who need it. So my friends, let me share this final thought with you. Yeah, these are the words of Winston Churchill. He said, success is not final, failure is not fatal. It is the courage to continue that counts. And you and I will leave this world knowing that we make this world better because we were here. Thank you, and God bless all of you.